the treatment room, I feel badly. As busy physiotherapy business owners, we're often juggling priorities, answering calls, speaking to clients, glancing at emails, trying to find time to reply to emails, return phone calls. Perhaps we miss opportunities to book or to rebook our clients into treatment. Many of us develop all sorts of coping strategies. We just work longer hours, we watch TV, and we do our emails. Not many of us necessarily use our technology in the most efficient way. And I recently came across ZenForInbox, and it struck a chord with me. I have to confess, with over 11,000 emails in my inbox, I used to just flag items as an attempt to prioritize stuff, but it all got really out of hand. And today, I only have the emails that have arrived since 1 o'clock today. So let's find out a little bit more about that process. I'm delighted to welcome Liz Hardwick. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. So, Liz, just give us a quick intro on who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name's Liz Hardwick. I'm one of the co-founders of DigiEnable, based in Lancashire, but covering across the UK and beyond. I'm also like a digital productivity specialist and professional speaker. So I go jet setting around the world, both in physical form and virtually, and kind of share and try and help other businesses, other organisations to get more stuff done in less time. And be more digitally savvy as well. So we have a wide range of services and training that we offer, but it's always got the element of sort of digital at its core.
That's fantastic, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about your offer later on in the conversation. So as we say in Lancashire, Liz, let's crack on, shall we? So ZenForInbox then. What gave you the idea for the module?
So for the past sort of 5 or 6 years, we've worked with a lot of organisations that want to move to remote working or flexible working. And they've really been ahead of the curve from where we are now. But one of the big things with bigger organisations is a big stumbling block, a big time zap is actually emails. So they're continuously using emails as the default form of communication because maybe person X isn't in the office. Maybe they're working, but they're working from a home or another location. We've got location dependent people within the organisation. And one of the big things they were always saying is, I'm just sick of CC emails. Like, I'm being CC'd into everything. I'm getting the email when it says there's cake in the office and I'm not even in the office. And so, everyone just sort of got...
That's terrible though, isn't it? Being offered cake and then you can't even get to the cake. That's terrible.
Exactly. And, there's so many better options than email. We were very much helping the organisations choose other platforms away from email. But, it got me thinking around, actually, I talk about my inbox being quite empty all the time, me being quite savvy with the way that I do things, and lots of other people wanting to know how that works. And we were starting to do training sessions, sort of one-to-one training with clients. But I think where we've gone with this sort of self-paced learning module is because people take time to do each step. So, what might take me 5 minutes might take you several hours. So it wasn't really that sort of best use of time. If people were going and booking in like an hour session with us, we could only prompt them in the right direction with things. Then we'd have to stop and start and have another session. So with this self-paced online learning, they can dip in and dip out at their own time. And, try and reclaim, like you said, reclaim the technology. Very much, I think we've found that technology is starting to control people and we're sort of attached to it all the time and it pings and we need to do something straight away. We need to sort of go back to using it as one of the tools in our arsenal of being business owners or organization, kind of leaders. So, it's still a big thing. We spend so much time in our inboxes. You spend at least, 36 hours a week in our inboxes and receive around 200 emails a day as well. So there's a lot of emails going back and forward. So it's understandable why it can become a problem. And if you don't deal with it, it just becomes that nagging thing as well. And mentally that
it becomes
also
11,000 emails in your inbox.
Yeah, that's a lot, Phil. Well done.
So tell me, where does it all start to go wrong for us?
I think think it's when you don't check, or you get into a habit of having a quick nosy in your emails, not doing anything, looking at something, which means that then automatically it will say then it's red. So it'll take off that number for you. So it will say it's no longer unread. We might look at it on our phone. Oh, we'll get to that later. We'll put the phone down and then we won't come back to it. And the thing is that we start to duplicate the actions that we're doing. So one email that if we'd have been there ready to go and to reply to that email might have only taken us 5 minutes. But because we haven't done that, we've just looked at it, we've thought, I'll reply to that later, we've put it down, we've then logged on to a different system maybe, then we've looked at it again, I'll do that later. What I'll do is I'll flag it, because then I'll remember what I'm doing for that. And we've added, you know, maybe triple the time from what would have been a 5-minute task to reply, yeah, that's fine, to being a 15-minute set of activities that really didn't need to be. And I think that's where a lot of people, if you've got a lot of emails in your inbox, there's that overwhelm, and then you feel like you don't do anything because actually it feels like a bigger task that you're not ready to take on. And having a system in place, you know, I mean, we've been using email since the 1990s, and yet the technology really hasn't gone that much further. You know, it is everyone's default form of communication, aside from you know, actually calling and speaking to someone.
It's the equivalent of the old written memo, isn't it? For
It
those
is.
listeners who go back that far. So just tell us a little bit, because one of the things that having completed the module, this idea about archiving, now that scared me to death, I've got to be honest to start with, because I'm thinking, what on earth is going to happen to all my emails if I start using archiving?
So archiving, depending on your system, will do different things, but it will always be there. It's a way of getting the information out of your inbox, and that is the key thing. And if you are hesitant to use the actual inbuilt archiving function with something like Outlook, for example, simply make a folder, call it archive, and put everything in there. The aim of the game really is to get it out of your inbox, because if we can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and like you said, you know, between now and when we finish this call, you might have a handful of emails in your inbox, and you know they're all new people wanting stuff that you're going to have to action on, or at least read and decide whether there's an action involved. Knowing that that might be only 5 or 20 is so much more relaxing and zenful than knowing, oh God, I've got those 11,000 emails in there. And also, if you've got different devices, some only sync the last 30 days and you don't have access to it. And, you know, you were saying in terms of like you've actually gone with the archive option, which is great. It will always be there. You can always use the search function. And I think in future, it also makes you a better email creator as well, because you know that if you have a good subject line with the right information in that email, that if you ever do need to find that email, you know what you're searching for. Indeed. So then that tallies up. You know, if you send invoices, put in the invoice number in the subject line, because then if you ever need to track it back, you can just search for the number and you know that it's there in your archives. So it's just getting it out of the thing that you see multiple times a day. And even if you haven't read half of them, it can be good to just archive off and start from an empty inbox, start from scratch again.
I have to say, one of the things you did spur me on to do when I did the module was realize how many bits of stuff were in there that I really didn't want to see anymore. So I unsubscribed. So there's about 20 unsubscribes went on in a very short period of time. Now, many of us have got phones, tablets, PCs, work emails, personal emails, multiple email accounts. How on earth do you get to grip with all those different types of content in terms of being Zen-like?
So I would say bring it all into one place. So even if you've got multiple email accounts, I would only ever log into one sort of user interface and have everything coming into one. Now, people laugh at me because I use a Yahoo email system, right? It's
Okay.
archaic. It
I
was set
remember
up
that.
in the 90s. I
Yeah.
know. I pay for the pro version, something like £30 every year to get the adverts off. But that's really good at, and Google does this as well. Most email platforms will do this, but I can very easily, on the top left-hand corner of my desktop, choose what email account I'm accessing. So because I sit on a few other boards on a voluntary capacity, I do want to read those emails, but I don't want to read those emails at the same time as reading my work emails, because I have a time sectioned off to do that later. So to have them as accounts that you can select, so, okay, I'm going to select Digi Enable now. Okay, I'm going to select Digital Lancashire now. I have then the option to see the emails there. But that saves so much time logging in, logging out with your password, going back to the different Google Mail that you've got that email on, bringing everything into one place. And so you can at least see at a glance if you've got any new emails and what accounts they're from.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I'm sure will brings a greater kind of focus on, I suppose, for mentally. I suppose it's far easier, isn't it, to think I'm thinking with my business head on, or my volunteer hat on, or personal. And I guess that brings me to this idea again of the second brain. I'd love the idea that I've got two brains in my head. Sometimes my wife would question whether I've got one there at all, but that's perhaps another story. So tell us how a second brain can help us to manage our inbox more effectively.
So second brain's a method. So some of you will have probably heard of Zen. Instead of ZenForInbox, which is our process we've created, you've probably heard of Inbox Zero. And that was one created by Merlin Mann. And Merlin Mann was always talking about trying to get the emails, or the thought of your emails, out of your head and actioned. And that's kind of where this second brain comes from. There's a lot of different words that have been coined over the years by different people. The guy who wrote the book Productivity Ninja, Graham Alcott, he talks about that as a sort of accord method. So capturing, organizing, reviewing, and doing. So there's a way that this method will work. And so it's kind of it's thinking about how best to utilize your system that you 100% trust, that at any given time, it will then tell you what you need to do and when. And for me, like, prime example, I didn't sleep very well last night. I woke up and I realised, I need to do that. And what did I do? Rather than sat up worrying about it, I picked my phone up, I got to my task list, I typed it into my task list with blurry eyes, knew that then my second brain would remember it, and I put it away again. And it's about trying to offload all the stuff that's in our heads, especially if you're business owners, especially if you're doing other things, especially if you have many other roles in your life rather than just business owner. You're juggling lots of things. It can be really easy to let things slip and just completely forget about stuff. Oh, I didn't cancel that appointment with such and such. I didn't book that person in because they rang me on the phone, and then I didn't do anything about it. I said, yeah, I'll do it later. I got busy, I got distracted, and then I didn't know what to do next. So it's all about making sure that it's as simple as possible for you to know what you need to do and when for the future, and then it reminds you back. So, for example, I've got Todoist as a task list app. I put everything into there. And if I have a time at which it needs to tell me when I do that, I then schedule it into my calendar and set a reminder for that. So I know I'm sort of 95% confident my second brain would catch most of the things. But then if something does pop in my head, I have a process to be able to remember that. And that is so refreshing to have that as a contrast, rather than, if you're a person who doesn't take notes and doesn't have a to-do list, I don't know how you cope, because my brain will just bomb out at some point, and they'll be like, "What are you thinking about, Liz?" I'm like, "Absolutely nothing." I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "No, my brain's empty."
It's like overload.
my brain went on holiday, So it's useful to have a system that actually really helps you optimize your time, so you aren't sat there thinking, "I feel like I forgot something." that feeling of worrying about remembering, that helps that as well. That's what Second Brain's for.
Perfect. And I was thinking I've got a technique with it which I'll share with you afterwards about how to set your mind to remember the things you're dreaming about without waking you up.
Oh, nice. That
Takes
sounds
a bit
good.
of takes a bit of a habit form, but it kind of works spookily. So in your package, you also talk about email management systems. Now, I know you've just talked about having an inbox with multiple inboxes. Just give us a kind of a bit of a sense of what on earth an email management system looks like.
So it's kind of going one step further than the traditional email system. So we might use Outlook, and we normally only use, say, 10% of the actual functions on it. So within Outlook itself, it's got lots of other features that you could be using, and that becomes much more of an email management system if you're using things like flags or filters or reminders or folders, rather than just having everything go into the inbox. But there's other apps out there that really have brought in next generation stuff. So there's an app and a program called Blue Mail, which I use, which is fabulous. And it has lots of different features, like you can snooze an email for later, which I appreciate Outlook and Google do, but this is almost like it's adding the extra features on top. You also have a thing called a people switch, which means that any emails that are from like hello at or info at or newsletter at, you can hide straight away and just filter down those emails from actual people that are being kind of coming into your inbox. And then you can also schedule things. So if you need to remind yourself to reply to an email, but only till next week, you can tag the email with a time that you want to actually schedule it for later. What I really like about Blue Mail is you can do that on apps on your smart devices and also on your desktop, whereas the Outlook apps and the Google apps are kind of limited. So it really forces you to then go back to the desktop. So for those of you that are like on the go and using your phone on the go, that adds that level of extra functionality back into your mobile device.
That makes sense. Blue Mail, worth a look then, particularly for, because I know quite a lot of our listeners and quite a lot of the clinic owners that we support are often running around with tablets and phones, trying to kind of do everything on the move. So that could be a real asset. So Liz, as a practiced Zen inboxer, tell us a little bit about your own approach to email management.
Well, I think we've already mentioned the sort of the archive folder. So anything I'm done with, I will archive off straight away if I don't need to action on it. There's very few emails that come into my inbox straight away. I do have a lot of filters set up. So things like you said, you've unsubscribed from a lot of things. That's great. Because if you're no longer interested in the content, get rid of it. For the 5 minutes it'll take you to unsubscribe from an email, on average, it will save you 20 minutes a year. So if you're thinking you're unsubscribing from several, you've just saved yourself maybe an hour a year.
Yeah, I've saved myself 4 hours then.
There you go, and that
half a day.
But that's it, and that soon adds up. And if you think that actually there's stuff that you're seeing that you're getting distracted by, but then you still have to make a decision on that particular email every time. So we have a thing called decision fatigue as well. And especially if we're struggling to do other stuff, we can actually just get to the point where our inbox is full because we don't quite know what to do with that email. So we just decide to leave it instead. So I have a very limited amount of things come into my inbox. I have filters for those emails that I choose to keep, but only read later. So they're not super important. So they do siphon straight out of my inbox into different folders. Then if I am ready to do stuff, I only check my emails a couple of times a day. I don't have my emails on all the time or pinging on my notifications so that it doesn't distract me. I choose when I'm going to check my emails. I give myself enough time to kind of think, okay, I've got a half an hour window here. I'll check my emails. And I will check my emails. If I can action on anything straight away, if it's going to take me less than 5 minutes, I'll hit reply straight away and do that. And if it's something that's a bit more complex, maybe I need to look at a booking form, or maybe I need to get a quote from a supplier before I can quote my client, I put it into a folder called Actions Needed. And I'll check that Actions Needed folder twice a day. So at the start of the day and the end of the day, and I will look at that folder before I look at my inbox in the morning. And I think what's really useful to do is not get sidetracked by what emails may or may not come in first thing in the morning. So, you know, if you've got booking emails in that inbox, then absolutely you want to be checking it first thing in the morning to have a gauge of what's going to look, what your day is going to look like.
Yeah.
But then not getting sidetracked to it. So I call that a first pass. So we have a quick look. Is there anything urgent? Is there anything I need to deal with straight away? If there's not, I'll leave it untouched and unread, and I will action it later. And then I'll choose a time that's more appropriate to then do my emails and action my emails later. And you know what? That saves me so much time. I used to spend probably 20, 30 hours a week on my emails. And I tracked it with an app, and you know, it was regularly saying about 30 hours a week. And now I've got that down to about 10, which is still a lot. But again, you know, when you get bookings and you're emailing clients, and my preferred communication platform is email. So actually that's, you know, higher than most of the other platforms that I would use. So it's not too bad, you know.
It's a significant saving though, isn't it? Because I mean, if you put that into context in a therapy business world, you know, that's more than 20 appointments.
Exactly.
Which is potentially revenue generating, or perhaps more importantly, if not revenue generating in the round, but not necessarily in terms of hands-on support with individual customers, but actually in terms of business, working on the business and generating new leads. 20 hours, you know, leveraging 20 hours out of a week would make a significant difference to most of us. But I guess you weren't always this organized, were you? Because I mean, this takes a lot of habits, doesn't it? It's habit forming. So how long did it take you to become this cool, Liz?
It does take effort, but I think if you think of it as an investment, if you're investing your time to change your habits, I think it's definitely worth it. DigiEnable's now been going nearly 10 years. 2 years into having set up the business, I got total overwhelm. I had way too many emails in my inbox. I probably did have 10,000, similar to yourself. I had people pinging me, people sending me LinkedIn messages and text messages and Twitter and it was too much. And I felt like, oh my God, like, what do I do now? So I did go on this productivity journey. I read every book that says productivity in the title. I tried loads of different apps. And for me, I've always loved technology. So being able to be a bit of a geek and find an app that could help. I did a bit of a research piece and downloaded, I think, nearly 300 different productivity apps, tested them, decided what was going to work. And I still refine that system, but I've still kind of got the processes in place that I do now. It is about taking back that time. You know, I mean, 20 hours a week of me sat in my emails, staring at them, faffing. And, you know, I think that's it. I think we procrastinate so much that we just get into habits of procrastination. And so now I try and force myself to be really focused in the time that I do spend. And it's also, you know, not being too hard on yourself because, you know, life gets in the way. So not kicking yourself too much if you haven't had a productive day, or, you know, you've not felt it that day, or, you know, you've had a bit of a downer. But then, you know, it's also about kind of moving forwards and thinking, what could I do different? How do you want to have a schedule? Like, if you got like an ideal day, what does your ideal day look like? And how could the way that you do things change? You know, I think especially if you're a business owner, there's this stereotype that you need to work 9 to 5. But actually, you know, if your clients aren't working 9 to 5 and you don't want to work 9 to 5, why should you work 9 to 5? And so I think it's taking back that control of kind of saying, actually, no, I want to do it this way, and I'm going to use my processes to make me do that. So yeah, I've always kind of loved scheduling. As one of my previous jobs, I used to schedule for broadcast. So if something didn't happen at the time it's supposed to, had dead air. So I was used to having big, really hardcore deadlines.
Yeah, if the news doesn't go out on the hour, then everybody's sat there waiting, wondering what's going to happen next. Yeah,
that's it. It's just dead air, and people are like, "Oh, what's happening?" So you know, so I was used to deadlines, but then when I started my own business, there was less deadlines. So I really struggled with not having deadlines, really. So I added deadlines back in and kind of sorted myself out by doing a bit of research, doing a bit of learning, trying new things, and then at some point you do have to plump for something. Plump for process, try not to change all your habits in one go. You know, do it for a bit, see if it works for you. I always test an app or a program that I'm using for 3 months. And then if it's yay or nay, then we decide whether we're going to use it or bin it. So it's having a bit of an idea of how you want to change, if you do want to change in that way.
And I know in previous conversations you've told me you've actually saved a day, haven't you? Because you now squeeze 5 days into 4.
I do.
That's quite impressive.
I do. I always wanted to do condensed hours. So in a previous role, I didn't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I was only ever on call, but I did my 40 hours a week in 4 days. So basically 10 hours a day. And then over time, when I started my own business, I decided I still wanted to have that sort of long weekend, but still didn't want to do, you know, those sort of full hours. So it ended up being 40 hours, but you reduced it. You know what, the biggest thing has been being focused when you need to be focused and having the time off when you need to have the time off, and deciding that if you're getting nothing done that day and you're procrastinating and you're not getting much, you don't feel it and you're rubbish and you just think, then stop. Because the more that you keep struggling, if you don't have appointments, you don't have, you know, kind of bookings already in, have the rest of the day off, because actually that will be so much more beneficial for you to get up early and start again the following day than it will for you to struggle. And I think it's about learning how you work, how your energy levels are, when's best for you to do different types of work at different times. And for me, I have a bit of a set routine now. I know what I need to do at different times. And because I am focused when I'm focused, and when I've got a piece of work to do, I get my head down and I do it. And, you know, you have to be quite strict with yourself to do that. And sometimes it won't work. But then when it doesn't work, that's when I work a 5-day week. So if I've done really, really well, and that's about, you know, kind of rewards as well. Like, are you rewarding yourself? For me, that's why I like taking Fridays off, because if I've done my work in 4 days, I've worked really hard, I've focused on my tasks. You know, don't overpromise people stuff as well. You know, I mean, people will go, yeah, I'll get that to you by tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, is that realistic that you're going to get everything done? So it's being, you know, really aware about what your sort of your plate's full of as well, I think.
That's brilliant. So Liz, I know that as DigiEnable, you support small businesses across the UK. So just tell us a little bit more about the other stuff that you get up to, and how that might relate to the therapy business, small business world.
Sure. Well, I mean, you know, there's lots of different ways that we can help in terms of, again, it's still with the strand of digital through it to some respect. So it could be time management and productivity, which is very similar to the ZenForInbox, using digital to actually help increase your focus and reduce the time that you're actually doing things like admin tasks. We also do training in things like digital for sales, for marketing, even digital inclusion. So like if you look at a laptop and think, oh my God, I don't even know what half of this does. We help in terms of the digital inclusion sphere as well. So, you know, helping people who've never used a computer or the internet before get online. You know, we're qualified trainers by trade. So if there's something that people are really, you know, kind of anxious to learn, if they've got a list of things that they really love to know how to do, we can craft and create a kind of a workshop or a session just for them. And I think there's massive value in that, because, you know, there's lots of, you know, kind of sessions out there and free stuff, but it can be really hard to figure out like what is going to work for your business sometimes. And having someone come in and, you know, someone like us and say, you know, what are you doing at the moment? How's the situation? What do you want to be doing? What things have you already got in place? We can kind of review that. And because we're not, you know, associated with anyone like Microsoft or whatever, we can really kind of suggest what's best for you in that, or you know, you and your business, or you know, within that organization. And, you know, having an external person suggest things like that sometimes can really help the conversation move forwards, especially if you've got people that are like, no, we want to do it this way. We've always done it this way. You know, it's actually technologies may have moved on where there's something that would save you so much time or help you in terms of your marketing or your systems. You know, and we can help with any of that. If it's got the digital theme throughout it, then it's always worth an ask. And, you know, if we don't do it, then normally we can refer on to someone who does.
Well, that's brilliant. So coming back to today and the topic of today around email management, what small steps could you offer to our listeners to encourage them to get started?
Sure. If you're like Phil and you've got like 11,000 emails in your inbox, first off, decide what your cutoff point is. Like, if someone emailed you 6 months ago, is it likely to be important now? They probably chased you since then if it was super important. So what I'd do is I'd select whatever your cutoff point is, anything sort of before that, select all, mark as read, so that reduces the number that's ticking up in the top of it all the time, and just put it into that archive folder. Because, I mean, it might be there's something super important in there, so you don't want to just hit delete. I would never suggest hitting delete. I mean, some people would, but putting it in the archive, forget about it, and then just try working on that small batch of emails that you do have left. And I think that's the best way to start if you're starting out, because then you'll feel so much relief from seeing that inbox have nothing in it. If you go to Google and you have it on the app, you get a little smiley sun behind it. So for those people who've never seen that, they're missing out, That can be
particularly in Lancashire.
name. Yeah, and so most app or programs now, actually, once you've got an empty inbox, it says a nice little message to you. So being able to look for that, I think, is quite fun as well. Gamify it.
Brilliant. Now, for listeners who already subscribe to our newsletter, you'll know that there's a fantastic offer from Liz and DigiEnable around time management in the newsletter. We'll publish that again next week if you haven't seen it. But Liz, how can people also find out a bit more about what you do?
Sure. The best way to kind of find out what we're about, we've got a podcast, we do blogs on a regular basis. It's all on the website. So it'd be www.digienable.co.uk. That's DIGIENABLE. We're on all the social media platforms that you'd kind of guess as well. And I personally love Twitter. So I'm tech_geek_girl on Twitter if anyone wants to ask me any questions or just, basically geek out about productivity or digital stuff. I'm always up for that.
That's fantastic. Well, Liz, thanks very much for virtually popping in to talk to us today about ZenForInbox and offering tips and tricks which will help our life to become more effective. That's all for this podcast today, but look out for next week's hot topics, where Andy and myself will be talking about what's your plan B. That's assuming you have a plan A for your business. Getting your business operation processes working well, and also sorting out your marketing plan. We've had some interesting discussions about that recently. So until next time, stay safe.